Are auto rifles meta? Well, we're going to be reviewing WaterfallRush here pretty soon, and I gotta say, that's one of the best feeling auto rifles in the game right now. However, there was an archetype of auto rifles that did get a buff at the beginning of the season, and those are precision frame autos. Think Braytech Werewolf, Shadow Price, Hard Story, as well as the return of the year 1 auto rifle, the Number, which I actually landed a very good roll of. But essentially, 450s got a buff per bullet from 17 to 18 now. Long story short, essentially 450s went from an optimal time to kill value of 0.93 to now 0.8, which sounds pretty nice. Like in comparison to auto rifles, that's pretty good, which matches the same TTK value of like 600s, think Gnawing Hunger, Hard Light, and slightly slower than rapid fire auto rifles. But was this buff enough? Guys, let me just show you a few of my rolls, some of my favorite 450s in the game right now. I know we got Braytech, we got Hard Story. I never really got great rolls of any of those. And somebody's gonna bring up, what about Breakneck? I know. I haven't even tried Breakneck yet, but that's partly due to the fact that it's sunset. I think we will break it out though, no pun intended, and do like a small short review of it. But the auto rifle we're gonna start with today is actually the Number. It's dropping this season, and our roll right here actually comes with arrowhead break, ricochet rounds with that bump there in stability and range, surplus, which is one of the best traits right now in the game for so many weapons, as it increases handling reload speed as well as stability for each fully charged ability. Now this one also comes with high impact reserves for that bump there in damage on the tail end of the magazine. I like high impacts on certain weapons that can kind of like sneak into the higher impact archetypes. This actually does kick the damage up to around 30, and on the really end of the magazine to 31 per crit, which is pretty nice, although not as high as like high impacts, which sit around 35 per crit. Matter of fact, you start to see some benefit here with high impact if you do take the time to prime it down, allowing you to effectively kill guardians in the same time to kill value. So that doesn't really change in 0.8 seconds, but instead of it being 7 crits flat on high resilience guardians, you could do it in 6 crits, 1 body. Now I actually really did like the Number, but I'm starting to question whether or not surplus and even high impact reserves, if either one of those was really aiding me as much as I had hoped. And the reason why I bring that up, this is a precision frame weapon. For the most part, in comparison to other archetypes, precisions are so manageable. They're easy to control. They're not like rapid fires, where you've got a bullet hose that you're just trying to contain. But in terms of ease of use, precisions are actually really good. That's what they're known for. When looking at the best rolls though for Number, I would consider something like Killing Wind and maybe multi-kill clip, just enough to pump that damage up. High impact reserves didn't really feel like it made that big of a difference. Plus, it is really annoying to prime before every gunfight, especially on a weapon like this that has a very large magazine. And you could of course manipulate this. You could throw a backup mag or have some other magazine boosting perk, which of course would give you more damage and more rounds to play with on the tail end. I would just suggest though, guys, surplus, Killing Wind, multi-kill clip for PvP. But did the Number really impress me enough to choose it over Shadow Price? Shadow Price, guys, has been one of my favorite 450s in the game, partly because there is an adept version of it that was dropping from Nightfalls last season. We should be getting, at some point this season, Shadow Price back in the loot rotation in Nightfalls. For some reason, it has some of the worst reviews for Crucible on Light GG, sitting at a 2.2, which kind of blows my mind. Like, really, guys? The Shadow Price feel that bad to you? Now, I did not land the God roll PvP roll as an adept, but I did land a pretty good roll for PvP on just the base roll. This one actually came with full bore for that bump there in range, although it does hurt stability. Accurized rounds for another bump there in range, surplus, which makes up for that drop there in stability, which I felt like was really helping me here, as well as Swashbuckler. Now, Swashbuckler doesn't make that big of a difference inside of PvP. If you're not rocking a melee-based build, I would prefer something like Rampage. Unfortunately, one of the biggest drawbacks to Shadow Price is that its PvP rolls aren't anything that special. Granted, it is a PvE weapon, or at least obtained through Nightfalls, so I guess it's not to be expected that this weapon would have good rolls for PvP. Although what Shadow Price does retain from Destiny 1 is its consistency. I feel like overall Shadow Price, maybe it's its scope, its gun design, its model, I don't know. It just seems much better to me in dueling situations when I'm having to track my target, land shots under fire. When comparing Shadow Price to the Number directly, I just find Shadow Price to be better here. Now, it could potentially be this roll. The fact that this roll right here has 89 range, and of course could stretch even further than that had I had a ranged masterwork. However, despite the range being so good here on Shadow Price, the number far exceeded Shadow Price in range. And that's because the default zoom for the number, which sits at 20. In comparison to Shadow Price, which sits at 16, you start to see the differences in range testing. Most notably my number right here, which has okay range at 68 range versus my Shadow Price at 89 range. Number wasn't actually seeing any damage fall off until about 36 meters, maybe 36 and a half. Shadow Price, 32. And that's 32 with almost max range. So maybe 33 meters with a range masterwork on top of everything else there aiding the range of the weapon. This is a classic situation, at least stat-wise, why weapons like Shayura's Wrath, the Trials of Osiris SMG, why they feel so much better than other SMGs. And that's simply because they have a more loaded deck in their stats, most notably zoom. My only issue with the number is I feel like it's being plagued in its accuracy. Maybe that's due to the increase there in zoom, I don't know. All I can say is that even when shooting from the hip, notice how the number aggressively flares out here, where Shadow Price kind of works up to that. And we know here recently, listening to Bungie and Chris Proctor, that there's initial accuracy and final accuracy. These are values that we can't see, but something tells me that the number has just piss poor final accuracy, because as gunfights would continue, I would notice my consistency dropping off pretty substantially. I like the number, guys. I want it to be good because stat-wise, it looks beautiful, at least the stats we can visibly see. Where I would target this weapon though, considering its zoom is so good that you really don't need to just boost things there in the range department. You don't need full bore. And considering that this is a precision frame auto rifle, you don't need arrowhead break. A counterbalance mod will completely suffice here. Even when doing recoil tests here with fluted barrel and a counterbalance mod, look how vertical it is. It sits at 85. Again, the number, man, it's got the perfect stats. Having that default of 70 recoil direction is perfect for counterbalance, as it adds on that plus 15 to get it to that odd number. 85, 75, 95, all the way up to 100. Very, very vertical. I would suggest, guys, and I'm looking for this roll right now for the number, either a combination of small bore, maybe even something like extended barrel, which does hurt the handling, but we can live without it. But that increases the range and the recoil direction by plus 10 with high caliber rounds or ricochet rounds. And I bring up high cal simply because high cal could potentially throw your enemy off with just enough flinch to allow you to win those duels. Alongside maybe surplus, killing win with multi-kill clip. Rock a counterbalance mod, spec for stability. This weapon already has great default range and the number should do well for us. Hopefully we can track down that roll and give it a go. I will say though that there is something hurting number, and that's just its bloom, man. I know this is from the hip, but some of this transfers there while you're aiming down sights. And even when I throw on a freehand grip mod, look at it. Yeah, it sucks it down a little bit, but it still aggressively flares out, even in comparison to Shadow Price here with a freehand grip. Maybe this was an intentional design. I don't know. I wish it wasn't, because if it wasn't and the number had more consistency, I really think it would be a great option for PvP. So guys, that is my thoughts on 450s right now. They are doing better. They have a faster time to kill value. They do require crits, so they're definitely not forgiving. Stat-wise, I think number is the most impressive one on paper. We just got to figure out why the hell it feels so funky. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.